Welcome back to Conquer the Concept. In this video, we will be learning about the history of cell theory. Cell theory has three main rules. The first rule is that all living things are made up of one or more cells. The second rule is that cells are the basic unit of life. And the third rule is that all cells come from pre-existing cells. There are some exceptions to cell theory, though. Viruses and the first cell are both exceptions because viruses are not made up of cells and are considered to be alive only inside of a host. This goes against Rule 1 and Rule 2, so viruses are considered an exception to cell theory. The other exception to cell theory is the first cell ever created. Due to the fact that it was the first cell, it couldn't have come from a pre-existing cell, which goes against Rule 3. Now, let's learn about the scientists who helped develop cell theory. In 1665, a British scientist known as Robert Hooke discovered cells by cutting thin slices of cork and putting them under a primitive microscope. Moving on to the next scientist, Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He was the first person to ever see living cells because the cork cells Hooke observed were not alive. He did this by looking at pond water through a microscope in 1674. Robert Brown was the first to observe the nucleus in 1831. In 1838, Matthias Schleiden, a German botanist, concluded that all plants are made up of cells, and just a year later, Theodor Schwann, a German physiologist, concluded that all animals are made up of cells. For nearly 20 years, not many new breakthroughs in cell theory occurred until 1858, when Rudolf Virchow, a German doctor, observed that all cells only come from pre-existing cells. All the discoveries and work by these six scientists help form cell theory. Now, to summarize, cell theory states that 1. All living things are made up of one or more cells. 2. Cells are the basic unit of life. And 3. All cells come from pre-existing cells. Viruses and the first cell are both exceptions to cell theory. In 1665, Hooke sees the first cells. In 1674, Leeuwenhoek sees the first living cells. In 1831, Brown names and discovers the nucleus. In 1838, Schleiden concludes that all plants have cells. In 1839, Schwann concludes that all animals have cells. And in 1858, Virchow states that all cells come only from living or pre-existing cells. This wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe to Conquer the Concept.